Hello and welcome to the Comixly podcast, the official podcast of Comixly.com. This is episode number 7. My name is Joseph and my co-host is Angela. Thank you for joining us again this week. We are going to be discussing the new-ish Apple TV Plus movie Boys State. I think it came out at the end of August. So a couple months old, but still relatively new. This is I should probably say this up top because it's going to take some time before we get into it in the episode proper. Boys State is a political simulation summer camp that has a few issues. This is a nationwide program. Specifically, this is Boys State, Texas. So this is a documentary that follows a couple of teenage boys who are participating in Boys State, which happens over the course of the week in Austin, Texas. And so, I think this is one of the more animated episodes that Angela and I have done so far. I think you'll hear that when we're getting into it. Sort of talking about what we see happening in the movie, and then sort of how the style or the format of the movies, how does it fit with what's going on with what is going on the screen, because we both struggle with that, and I think have some strong critiques of that. So this is a little bit weird. We're recording this on November 2nd. Tomorrow is the election, November 3rd. You listening will not hear this until the following Wednesday. I think that's the 11th. When we'll know who our new president is. So I think, that's hanging over both of our heads a little bit in this discussion, and sort of how we think what we see these boys doing, right, with the politics that we see them engaging in reflects what the politics that are going on national stage, right, and in some ways that are really disheartening and make you worry about what people are learning, especially young people are learning and taking away from what they've seen happen over the last 4 years. So yeah, we'll get into that. It's I think we have a good discussion. I don't know if I'd say go out and see this movie. If you have Apple TV Plus, if you know where to find it easily on the internet, maybe it's worth your time. It's under 2 hours, so it's not extremely long. But yeah, so we're going to be talking about Boys State. That's on Apple TV Plus. We'll have our short discussion, then we'll have our, a discussion of some things that make us a little bit happier than this movie at the end. And thank you everyone for being here, and we hope you enjoy the podcast. All right, you want to bring us in?
I don't know what this movie's about. You should bring us in.
What do you mean you don't know what this movie's about?
I watched it, but you should just bring us in.
Well, I think this should just be the start. I think you saying I don't know what this movie's about is the start of the podcast. Okay, that's what we're going for. Hello, everyone. We just found our episode opener. Angela doesn't know what this movie is about. She watched an hour and 50 minutes. She has no clue.
Less than 24 hours ago.
I don't think that's true. But why do you say that? That's interesting. What do you mean when you say that?
I guess I don't know how I was supposed to feel after watching it. Because first I thought that it was supposed to be inspiring, oh my gosh, young people are gonna fix the world, but
Yeah, it's not that. No.
Nope. No. I don't feel like that's how it is.
Why do you think? So you didn't know anything about this. I told you to watch the trailer, but you didn't know anything else, right?
Right. Okay, and I didn't watch the trailer.
Oh, you didn't? Okay, so you were going in totally, you don't know what this is.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you think part of that was you assumed it was one thing and then it wasn't that other thing? Or what do you, why do you say you had to feel a certain way, or like you expected to feel a certain way?
Because, like, I guess I thought it was like, I could tell that it was like a documentary type thing, and then it opened up with this, like, okay, quick pause. Should I be hearing an echo of myself?
No. Is it bad?
Wait. Now I can't hear it.
Let me move the mic down one sec, because if the mic is too close, and if you hear that, just like hit say that pause, and then
Okay.
we'll. Okay, so you were saying it started with, so come back in on that.
So, now I hear it again. Now I don't. Okay, I don't hear it anymore. Okay. So it started with this, like, they were talking about Brave New World in 1984, and I was like, huh, these kids are they're, like, reading the right books, I guess, to, like, understand.
Well, to be fair, it's a guy it's a man in a classroom.
Yeah, true.
Setting up what this week is going to be, right?
Right.
And someone, oh, this is very good. He's like, what's Brave New World about? And he's like, there's a guy, he's trying to go against the government a little bit, and the guy's like, great, you got it. That's what that's what 1984 is about, a guy trying to go against the government a little bit. That's it, buddy. The best, like, Brave New World just got critiqued, or I don't know, analyzed.
Sparknotes.com.
Yeah, absolutely. It works. And then whatever the, like, person who's introducing them to this thing they're about to do. And I guess so after this we have to say what this movie, I'll try to say what I think I'll say what I think this movie's about. But then he's like, and he's reading someone else's analysis or comparison between 1984 by George Orwell wrote 1984, right?
Correct.
Okay. And Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, which are both, like, pretty classic, like, dystopian societies where, like, fascist totalitarian governments have, like, taken over and, like, are oppressing, like, people around the world, right? But, like, these huge, like, worldwide governments. And this comparison piece says something about how, like, when it got to 1984, people were happy that it hadn't turned it out like it happened in the book, but they forgot about Brave New World, where people are sort of the instruments of their own subjugation, right? They sort of became so enamored, or, like, we're just so content with, like, pleasure or entertainment that they sort of are willing to be, like, controlled. And, like, that's kind of right, but I think, like, and this goes back to the boy, to Robert, who's one of the main characters, and we'll talk about him in a second, like, oversimplifying Brave New World. Like, I think that's a pretty, like, major oversimplification of Brave New World, like, that, right? Which gets to this thing that we're going to talk about in a second about the premise of Boys State just being really, I'm going to drop some F-bombs on this podcast because this movie makes me upset. Really fucked up, I think. So what is Boys State, right? Well, it's a movie, right? It came out end of August. It's on Apple TV Plus or other places on the internet if you know how to find them. It's not hard to find. And it's about this summer camp. It's like politics summer camp. And I'd never heard of it. I did a little bit of research, and apparently it happens in every state in the country except for Hawaii. So it happens in Wisconsin. I had never heard of it though.
You know what it reminds me of?
What?
So you haven't done forensics, but if anybody who's
I've been to forensics meets.
It's like if all the boys who did oratory and extemporaneous speaking went to summer class, summer camp together.
But the thing is, those... No. Okay, this is really getting in the weeds, because I don't know if people know what forensics is. It's like public speaking as, like, competition, right? And so... But it's like if... But the thing is, the boys who do that are, like, way smarter than a lot of the kids that I think go to this summer camp, right? Like, I don't think... If it was filled with kids who were doing that, they would not be... This would not have turned out the way it did if it was filled with those types of people. Because those types of people are, like, creative and, like... You
haven't seen them after the rounds when you the judge aren't in the room, but fair. Yeah, okay.
All right. Well, so that's another question, right? Is this well, let me set it up and then we'll get to that. So it's politics summer camp, right? And this is specifically Boys State, Texas. So they're going to spend a week replicating the process, and specifically just the process of how people get elected in the state of Texas. It's not about like drafting policy. It's not about learning how, like, laws work or how laws get made or bills get made, or like how you create a party platform, or how you, like, negotiate and collaborate with people to, like, get things done, or how you, like, talk to your peers or your constituents and learn what they need so that you're, like, helping other people, which is the goal of politics, I would say. Like, you know, It's literally just about how do elections work, right? And so, which gets to this thing that is like, and this is, I think this is why it's going to be a little bit hard to talk about it, because I think Boys State, and I don't know if they're all run like this, but maybe we should say Boys State, Texas, the premise, in the same way that, like, the man is misrepresenting and, like, oversimplifying the premise, like, it is just wrong and, like, rotten from the very base. That, like, the what it's focused around, like, how they're presenting it to these kids, it's just, like, wrong. And then there's a sense in which gets to, like, the teenage boy thing, right? I think if the premise is wrong, and if it's so wrong at the core, like, could it have turned out any other way? Or another question is this just what happens when you put 1,000 17-year-old boys, only boys, which is a thing we have to, like, talk about right immediately, only 17-year-old boys in, like, rooms for a week? Is this just what happens? Okay, so, man, I have a million things I want to say. I don't even know where to start. Let's start with this thing, right? It's only boys. What was your reaction, right? So talk us through that opening scene when one of the characters...
Okay, yeah.
Talk us through that.
So, I don't know. There's this one kid who was, like, talking to his friend, and he's like...
It's Steven. He's one of the pretty
important
main characters. Yeah. One of the main characters. They just got off the bus at the place.
Right. And Steven's like, I think it should be People's State.
And he doesn't... It's not a joke. He's not joking.
Yeah.
Like,
even though for a second I thought he was just saying that to, like, pander. But...
Yeah, you'll learn that he's not that type of person throughout the rest of the movie. Mm-hmm. And, like, there's a way... like, a certain type of person could say that in a certain way where it would be almost gross and, like... It would be trolling, right? He wasn't, you know... Yeah. So, okay, so go ahead.
I mean, yeah, that's what happened. That's what he said.
But then the thing, right? But what does his friend do? Do you remember what his friend does?
Well, there's a girls' state or somewhere. Is that what he said?
Well, but his friend is like, what? Like, what are you talking? Like, why would there be girls here? Like, he was like, his friend was immediate. Like, why would we do that? They have their own one, and he's like. It's this very interesting and I don't know if, like, the way that I read that interaction was like the other boy was, like, so offended that Steven instantly had to be like, no, man, I'm just kidding. I am trolling you. Like, I didn't mean that. Like, I don't mean that there should be people staying. I don't mean that we should have girls here. Mm-hmm. And he had to, like, go back. No, like, it was a troll. I wasn't serious, right? you'll come to learn that like Steven's politics are much. I don't even think they're particularly far to the left, but they're much farther left. You know what? They're like, yeah, he's definitely like a liberal. I wouldn't say he's like a centrist, but they're much farther to the left than a lot of the kids there. And that becomes like a big point of contention throughout the week. But and I think, right, so this is another one of those things, right? Like going back to like just a rotten premise, like the fact that it's focused on the simply on how elections work, and the fact that there aren't girls there, right? Like you're just like I don't think it matters that there's a girls' state, because like if they want to simulate politics, like men and women don't practice politics separately, you know, like what, like, right? Am I
right?
That seems it's crazy to say like we're simulating this thing, but there's no women here. Like, then are you simulating the thing? I don't know, right? And there's like, yeah, I don't know, yeah. So I think the whole thing is like pretty messed up from the start, and only kind of gets more messed up. I don't know if it gets more messed up, but you just like, I think that makes it difficult for me to think about if there is anything we can really take away about the people that we see, the way that we see the people in the movie behave. Which is something that I was thinking a lot about. And this is the thing, because this is my second time watching it. This is kind of the thing I told you that maybe you think about, like, how is this representative of what we have seen politics, and not to say politics weren't this before, but like transform, like, right, they have taken their final form as this sort of like, it's not people like, and this sounds horrible, but it's just about like, you can say things that don't mean anything and no one checks you on it, right? It's just that it has to happen in like sound bites and sound clips, right? It's like, I think of it as politics as like a sport, or politics as a performance, which it always was, but like I think it's taking a new form or something. And so like that was kind of the thing that I was thinking about. The second time I was like, can you really figure out anything about how teenagers have internalized that in the last 4 years? Was there any sort of thought that was popping up as you were watching it, or were you really just trying to figure out like, how should I feel about this? What should I be thinking about this?
Aside from like being confused the whole time about what a federalist was and what a nationalist was,
Okay.
It was just also interesting to see like the closer it got to like election day, the sort of like dirtier the tactics got. Mm-hmm. And like I was sort of just like, and like now, because like election day is like tomorrow, and yeah, like I'm seeing a lot of like slander and like ads and whatever. Mm-hmm. It was just like, it felt like the boys were kind of just like stooping down to like that level. And it just seemed super immature, like all those like memes.
Well, so I work with high schoolers. You're much closer to that age. Like,
right.
Okay, like, so let's just go in on this. Do you think that is what happens when you stick a bunch of 17-year-old boys together, or do you think it was them stooping to the level that they have seen played out nationally, right, with our national politics?
I think it's sort of both.
Okay.
Yeah, especially I feel like there was something else that was like really dumb. I don't know. I can't think of it right now, but like it just felt like
the meme pages were specifically by one of the parties, right? The meme pages were like this huge tool to yeah, slander is a great word, to slander and like, yeah, just destroy the image of,
like the way they came at Renee.
yeah.
That's kind of the point when I was like, this is stupid. Like I was like, this is stupid the whole time, but I was like, this is really stupid.
Yeah. Okay, let's try to take a step back. So okay, so it's Boys Day. It's like this political summer camp. And so when there's like 1,000 boys there, and when they get there, you get randomly split into two parties, the Federalists and the Nationalists, because they don't have the courage to admit that politics, we have a two-party system, whether or not like that, regardless of saying like that's a good thing or a bad thing, like that's the way it is in the US. And right, this goes back to the thing, like they want this to be a simulation, but they're like turning away from that and sort of doing their best to like obscure any sort of reality at every turn, in the way that they present it, in the fact that there's no women there, and then the fact that they don't call them just call them Democrats and Republicans. They can come up with their own platforms, but like that is what politics is. And like, right, so Federalists and Nationalists were just another way to say
Team 1 and Team 2.
Yeah, it's Team 1. Yeah, that is perfect. It's just Team 1 and Team 2. And Federalists, I'm not sure if Nationalists was, but I know Federalists was like a political party back when like the Constitution was written, like back when America's like founding documents, one of the parties was the Federalists. I don't know what they believed in, and I don't know if Nationalists was ever like a major political party. But yeah, so they split them into Team 1 and Team 2. And then
Nationalist was a political party.
It was, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Like a long time ago?
It just says that nationalism holds that each nation should govern itself free from outside interference.
Oh, so that's like nationalism as like a political movement.
Yeah, but there's a founder of the Congress National Party, was a political party in British India. It was founded by two people in 1934.
Oh, does it say anything about it in America? Has there ever been like a political party in America called the Nationalists? Like a major one, not a fringe.
I don't know.
Not a fringe far right movement. But anyways, that's its own thing, right? I guess this was filmed in 2018, but calling like a group of people referring to themselves as nationalists in 2018 is extremely fucked up, based on like the xenophobia and the fact that it's in Texas, which shares a border with Mexico, and like calling yourself nationalists right there, I think is extremely loaded. It's a bad look. And like, pardon?
It's a bad look.
It's gross. Yeah, it's really gross. Okay, but yeah, so they're in Team 1 and Team 2, and then each of the boys has to decide, right? So you can, I forget, they just describe the levels of government, right? It's like city, county, state, I think, right? And you can decide what position you want to run for in each of the levels. And then the big election is focused around representing your team as their candidate for governor, and then the sort of election for governor against the other team. And like Angela said, this is a weird time to be discussing it because it is November 2nd. This episode won't come out until a week after the election, but like it is, I think we're both feel like that context I think is important, just like in both of our own feelings about this movie, even though like for anyone listening it will have already happened, and we don't know what it's going to be like, but I digress. So and you have to get signatures from other people to like endorse you to run for a position, right? And you collect the signatures. So it's interesting, right? Like the different boys had the different approach to collecting signatures, right? one of the boys that we follow, Robert, just kind of goes around and is like, hey, like, do you want to sign this piece of paper? Right? The same way you like ask your parents to sign something when you're at
like a permission
school.
slip.
Yeah, but or like I was about to see, even like you ask them to sign something and you're real nonchalant about it because you don't want them to read it because like I don't know, maybe it's like a
detention
slip or like you need to be aware that your son or daughter's grades are very bad, but like it's written out as a letter instead of looking like a report card, right? So he's running around like that, like getting signatures on the low, and then Steven, who's another one of the guys we follow pretty closely, is like very interested in like making sure people know what he stands for before he gets their signature. Right? I like that's his own sense of integrity and like purpose and why he's here, like, guides him in doing that, which is really nice to see, right? Because another problem with this whole thing is that the other boys are endorsing people who they don't know what they believe in, right? Because they split the people up into teams, but the teams don't have a platform. The teams don't believe anything, right? You can't say this team believes in, gun rights is this huge issue, right? It's Texas, of course. So, whatever. Gun rights is this huge issue. You can't even say team 1 is for stricter gun laws and team 2 is for like more relaxed gun laws. Like, at the point when they're collecting signatures, no one has a clue about that. They haven't even had those conversations, at least as far as the movie shows it. We're going to talk a little bit about the end, about like what the movie does and doesn't show you, because I did like a little bit of research. But as far as the movie shows you, that those types of conversations haven't happened at all, right? So like, and it's somewhere towards the beginning of this movie, it says, do you remember? It says like who you elect matters. Do you remember?
Yeah, that's when he was talking about 1984 and Brave New World. And it's like, this is why who you elect matters. And I was like, I didn't get it, but okay.
Yeah. Jeez, that guy really needs to read Brave New World in 1984 again. Yeah, so he says who you elect matters. And then the boys go and run around and endorse people to represent them. And they literally don't know what they believe. I don't know. I'm getting heated. All right. And like, yeah. So like, and so this is something we started this is like another digression. This is the episode of digressions. Another thing you and I talked about before we started, Angela, is how, and I think everything what we're saying right now is like a critique of what Boys State, Texas is, right? We're not particularly critiquing the movie, but I find it really hard to separate. I don't know. I'm finding it hard to separate like what I saw happening from like the thing that showed it to me, right? The documentary is the thing that showed it to me, and what I saw happening was like extremely like upsetting, right? It was upsetting to like see kids behave like this. And I think the reason I'm saying that I find it like, I guess I maybe find it difficult to separate them is the wrong thing, but like, was there ever a moment when you were like, you wanted the person, so there's like, these are, let me say this and then I'll ask my question. There's these like confessionals. There's these moments where the four main characters, Steven, Robert, Ben, and Renee, will like be in a room alone, and the interviewer
laying on a couch.
Yes, yes. Sometimes they are reclined on a couch, looking very comfortable. They're not like sat up. I don't think Renee ever laid down. He always was like sat up, like he was like, very intense.
Or taking it seriously.
Yeah, taking it seriously. Yeah, which is why Renee rules. But obviously they're responding to questions that the interviewer asked. You never hear the interviewer. But was there ever a point when you really wanted someone to just be like, why did you just do that? Or like, was that like a good thing to do? Did you ever want someone to push back at all on what you saw happening?
Yeah, especially when that one guy was like, I am just going with along with whatever other people think because I want to win.
Mm-hmm.
That one guy, and I was just like, do you know how you sound?
Yeah. So that was Robert. Yeah. So there's a point, right? So Robert and Steven, two of the people that we follow, they are. I honestly don't know what team they're on. I don't know if it's Federalist or Nationalist. It's the same team, and they run against each other to represent their team in the governor race, right? So it's like the primary. They're having their primary for their team to be the representative for governor. And Robert it comes out that Steven was the organizer for March for Our Lives Houston because he lives very close to a school that had a student bring a gun to school and shoot people, and he was like, that was a pretty I don't mean to say, and it was a moment for him that like sort of spurred him into local action. So he led the March for Our Lives Houston, right? And then like the kids find pictures of it on Instagram, and it becomes this huge thing spun into how Steven doesn't believe in the Second Amendment and he wants to take their guns, right?
That was disgusting to watch.
Yeah. Talk more about that.
It was just like, it felt like they were missing the whole point about why that like March for Our Lives was happening. Like it's like they were disregarding like that tragedy that happened.
Yeah.
And that just like it made me mad.
Yeah. But like there are adults who also miss like that. Like that's the scarier thing, I would almost say, right? It's like there are adults who misunderstand that like they are not coming for your guns. They don't want people to be shot inside of schools. Like
right.
they are related but separate issues. But just like, you're right though, it was like immediate and it was vicious in a way that is like, I know teenagers can be mean to each other, but I have not seen that. I have seen teenagers say some pretty horrible things. Not
aren't you like a teacher?
No, that's what I would say. Not in my job right now. I haven't seen that in my job right now, but I remember as part of a track and cross country team, there were some kids who said some pretty awful things to each other. So I take that back. But it was like, it was vicious, and they knew exactly what to do with it. They knew like exactly how it was like the thing that they were gonna destroy this kid. They were like, you stood up for what you believed in, and we are going to destroy you because of it. And like,
right.
So Robert, he's the other candidate. He's like, oh, I'm gonna use this, right? So Robert goes up there, starts bashing about the Second Amendment. And I don't remember how it comes out, but it also, the other huge issue, well, there's what are the big issues? Guns,
abortion,
abortion, immigration. Is there anything else? Guns, abortion, immigration. I think those are the big ones. There's a lot of talk about like socialism and healthcare, but I think those three are really the ones that all of them have they're not informed about it, they just have an opinion, right? So he goes up there, bashes Steven on the Second Amendment, and is like, comes out very strong on like, he repeats this twice during the movie, that there are 30 couples looking to adopt a child. There are like 30 couples looking to be like foster or adoptive parents for every child born in the state of Texas. So why would you ever let abortion or think abortion is a good thing, right? Which is like, again, willfully misunderstanding that abortion is about a woman's right to choose, and if she doesn't want to have a kid, it is not you, white man. It is not your choice. or ability or like whatever to say what she should or shouldn't do with her body, right? Like it does not matter that there are people looking for kids, like, so whatever. But then, right, in one of these confessionals, towards the end of the movie, he reveals, I don't know, reveals is the wrong word. He says, he's like, yeah, I actually don't believe that. Like, I'm actually pro-choice, but I knew that it would help me in the...
Oh.
Yeah,
And at that point, I was just like, man, fuck him. Like,
yeah.
that is just like... It's like, honestly, I looked at it, the scope was like, is that the kid who was like, I'm gonna apply to West Point? That was him, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, don't you think those West Point people are gonna find this? And like, do you know how you look right now? Like, you no, whatever.
Well, like, yeah, it's like, it's horrible. And he's like, yeah, I knew that would help me in the election, right? Which gets back to this thing that is like, this is a game to them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's never, no one's ever self-aware in this, are they? Right? Like, I don't know. They know there's a camera right there. They know this is a movie, right? Like, I don't know. It kind of runs against my opinion of teenagers now. Where like, I don't know, you see like the kid, the students I work with, like the kids on TikTok, like teenagers are pretty self-aware, right? They're like, they are aware of how to like, I don't want to be cynical and say every teenager like is selling themselves as a brand, right? But they know how to like represent themselves on the internet, at least, right? Which is a skill. And no one's like, Robert should like, it's interesting that he said it, but it's more fucked up that he did it. Like, we cannot forget that it is way more fucked up that he did that and thought it was okay. And like, I think that was the moment when someone just needed to be like, why did you do that? Like, do you know what message that sent, right? Do you know how it potentially like hurt Steven, right? Like, it's infuriating. Oh boy, I feel like I need a water break. Like, we need like a halftime. No, I think we should talk a little bit about Ben. Because Ben is the guy who runs the campaign against Steve. He's like Renee, but for like
he's the guy that was laying down all the time, right?
Yeah, Ben did a lot of laying down. Yeah. So, oh man, and we gotta talk about Renee too. Whew. Okay, let's talk about Renee, because I think Renee and Steven both, right? I think they're both bright spots for this movie for sure. Have you seen Obama give speeches? Have you like watched him give a speech? Like, do you remember? I don't know. It's a weird question. But...
I mean, I've never sat through one.
Okay. Do you like know how he like what he does with his hands when he's speaking? Do you like?
Yeah. I'm like.
Did you see Steven doing that when he was talking?
A little bit.
Yes. So it's right. It's in the same way that Trump and like the modern Republican Party are big influences on Robert and Ben. Steven, right? You see a lot of like Obama's mannerisms, and I would say a lot of his politics in Renee and Steven, right? And I think the thing, like, I think, this gets into like a deeper question, like, were they forced to, or is that just how they work, right? Because like, they did a lot of negotiating, right? Like, Steven, did you ever feel like Renee or Steven could actually come out and say what they felt?
I don't know, because it felt like a lot of the boys there were like very like right leaning, And I
They
feel
were.
like,
They just were right-leaning, right? This is like,
yeah.
it was a lot of like white teenage boys, and from what I've heard, like the demographics skew very rural, like a lot of rural 17-year-old white boys. So they're going to be like far right, if anything. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like Renee and Steven weren't that so much.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, I get it. Like when you're like 17, like it's hard to say what like you mean when there's like everyone else. Like it's hard to like be in the minority and like say your opinion.
Yeah.
And I feel like I wish that there was more. Like I wish that they could have, you know.
Yeah. I think that's absolutely it. Because Renee, like, at that opening speech, right, he taught, like, Renee's the only person I think who, like, actually, right, he's like actually put together policy, right? He actually knows how, like, you like work together with a group of people to get something passed to help someone else. Because when he's from Chicago, and then he moved down to Texas. And so when he was in Chicago, something that I'm pretty sure was when he was in Chicago, something that he did was work to get I forget exactly what they wanted it to do, but he was in contact with someone who was in a prison. And I forget, they worked to get some prison reform bill passed in the state of Illinois, I believe. I forget exactly what it did. But like he did something, like he worked towards a goal to change like the conditions of like other people's lives, right? Which is like what politics, a huge part of what politics does, right? When like I doubt that anyone else in that room, and the camera doesn't point, it doesn't sort of shine its light on a ton of other kids, right? We really follow just 5 kids, the 4 that we've been talking about, and then one other kid who's not important, but like like, you never get the sense that anyone else has that sort of practical knowledge, or like could actually do this, or even cares enough to like work on something that hard. But you're right, like, and I think it is right. It is because of the setting there. Like you never get the sense that Renee or Steven can say what they actually believe, right? And you hear a lot of like negotiating, which is something Obama had to do, especially when, right, the Senate, right, because those last 2 years he was in office, right, the Senate and the House of Representatives are both like they were both like Republican, right? So he was opposed by that whole branch of government. And so he couldn't, like, it was really hard for him to do anything. That's not like an excuse by any means. But like you hear them sort of navigating or sort of watering down their politics for a crowd that they know is super Republican. And it's really like sad that like there is just absolutely no space for anything that is like slightly left, or like central, or even like slightly left. Right, something as like pretty, right, something as uncontroversial as saying that you don't want kids to have to fear guns when they go to school, right? Like like we said before, like it just it comes up and they're vicious, and they just like go.
That reminds me of something else someone said. Do you remember that one guy who just kept on talking about like masculinity?
No, there was a lot of talk about masculinity. Be more specific.
I don't know. He was just like, I'm gonna protect our masculinity, and I was like, oh my goodness.
Oh no, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of like, it's like it's very heteronormative, right? It's very like dudes being dudes, right? Like, yeah, it's, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, anyways, so Renee and Steven are good, right? And the way that it ends up is Steven beats Robert in that primary, and Renee is sort of the person running his campaign. He's the team party representative. But Steven ends up losing the governor's race to another kid named Eddie, who the camera focuses on a little bit, but Eddie's very boring, so let's ignore Eddie. Do you have anything to say about Eddie? He's very...
No,
yeah.
People seem to really like him. I didn't see the appeal, but...
Well, I mean, this is a good thing to get into Ben, right? So Renee is running Steven's campaign for his team. Ben is running Eddie's campaign for the other team. And I don't think Eddie's remarkable. I think Ben does some really shitty stuff that gets Eddie the win, right? Because for Ben, and I think Ben is the ultimate person in this movie who's this is a game. I'm going to play the fucking game and I'm going to win, right? Which is because, the movie starts, we get the movie starts with, we see Ben at home. We see there's some sort of B-roll-ish background stuff before you get to Boys State, before you get the 1984 Brave New World thing. And you get Ben talking about how much he loves Ronald Reagan and Googling good political speeches, because that's where every high school paper starts, right? With Google search. Right, and you get the idea that Ben is this very motivated kid, right? He says he can't go into the army because he's a double amputee because he lost both his legs when he was 3 years old to a disease. So he wants to go into the CIA, right? He's interested in working for the government, right? And you get the sense that he's the type of kid who will, you believe him when he says that, right? But that is not the kid that I want anywhere near the government. Am I wrong? You know what I mean, right?
Right.
He's the one who's really politics is a game and he knows how to play it. And this comes out, it's coming out during the movie, but it comes out a lot towards the end when, right, and this bears a lot of they could never have known this, but this rings very true to what literally just happened in the first presidential debate, where on the day of the governor election, they're going around, and Steven and Eddie, the two candidates for governor, are giving short little speeches followed by Q&As, right, to try to convince people convince members of both teams to vote for them. And Eddie's not doing a good job. And Ben knows this. So on one of the stops, Ben tells Eddie to just kind of introduce yourself, but then and it's not an open Q&A. The questions were submitted and vetted, and then the candidates Stephen and Eddie will respond to those vetted questions. It's not an open Q&A. But on one of the stops, Ben tells him, just introduce yourself and then open up the floor for an open Q&A, which is against the rules of what they agreed on, right? They agreed to a set of rules, and Ben was just nah, we're not going to do that. Which is literally what happened in the first debate when they couldn't, when Trump couldn't stick to his timing and then claimed that it was unfair when he had agreed to these rules, right? Which and I think this is our cumulative question, right? And I think we're already sort of getting there in the way that these kids have learned some things by watching national politics over the last few years. But so Renee is there, right? He's in there. He sees Ben doing this, and he stands up and is no, those aren't the rules. We're not doing that. Instantly, Ben is oh, that's bias. That's liberal bias. You're trying to right? He keeps saying, "You're trying to cancel us." And I'm like, dude, this is not the internet.
Gen Z is showing.
Oh my god, he's like, "You're trying to cancel us." I'm like, oh my god, you're like...
I wish you could listen to yourself.
You poor thing, right? And so it becomes, and like, suddenly Ben starts like running around to like anywhere he can, right? Because there's all these like groups of kids set up for like town halls meetings for like the governor election, but for also for all the other elections. He starts running around and telling everyone like, oh, they have liberal bias, they're trying to cancel us, we will not be silenced, right? Like this very combative, aggressive thing. Like he has just been wronged, right?
Right. And also, like, where were the adults?
Why
wasn't anybody there to put him in his place?
Okay.
Because that shouldn't have been Renee's job, I feel like.
Yes. Okay. I think this gets to... All right, so Ben's a shithead. Like, he might be a fine person. I don't want to attack... Like, and it like, I say that, it feels wrong to attack him because he's like a 17-year-old boy. He's a real person. He does some shitty things in this movie, and, like, I don't know if he's a good person. That's up for you. I hope he's reflective.
Ben, if you're listening.
Yeah, Ben, if you're listening. You know what, Ben? No, I don't want to talk to you, Ben. You're fine. Okay, so were there like that was one right? But that wasn't like in the same way that I wanted the interviewers to just be like, why are you doing this? Because there are adults around, right? You see the adults like talking to the kids at various moments, right? In these sort of like advisor roles. But you never ever see them like just being like, yo, don't do that. You know what I mean? Which is
like, what's the point of having this if you're not gonna like help these kids or like, you know, make them not turn out into awful people who later become the president.
Yeah, no, absolutely, right? Like so I listen to and I'll link this in the show notes. I listened to a podcast about this called The Big Picture Show. They did an episode about it. And I think the last question the host asked the people who made it, right, the filmmakers, was like, do you think this helps them become better politicians? And it was a woman and a man team. I don't know if they're husband and wife. I don't think so. They might be, but I think they are.
They had different last names, if that means anything. I know it doesn't mean anything, but you know.
But they were talking. They were talking about the way that they were talking made me think that they were husband and wife. You are right. They have different last names, so I'm not sure. But the woman is like, I'm not going to answer that question. You'd have to ask the kids. And then the guy is very staunchly like, yes, it helps them. They understand what politics is and how the process works. But like, does this really, it represents the worst of what politics could be, right? Mm-hmm. This is absolutely politics at its worst. In the sense
it's like an election mixed with who's going to be prom king, mixed with like who's going to be class president.
Yeah, right. Which is like, not to say that doesn't happen on like the big scale, but that's shitty and horrible and like the thing that it shouldn't be, right? Mm-hmm. And sort of, I guess I would be interested to think like this competition is run by the Foreign Legion, right? So it's run by veterans. Like, I don't know if that implicitly informs the politics of the thing. They show a bunch of like old men, right? They show a bunch of old men. I can assume things about their politics, but that's probably not fair, right? Like, so I don't know if the fact that it's run by the American Legion informs it, but like there were so many points when you just want an adult to run it and like, no, this isn't the way it goes, right? And like, there's nothing wrong with that, right? Because they are teenagers, like they don't know everything,
right?
Yeah. So and I think this sort of gets into our like what the camera does and doesn't choose to show us. So listening to that podcast, at one point, right, we mentioned the meme pages before, and the meme pages are used to smear Renee. This group of 1,000 kids is like extremely, extremely white, right? You see some black kids, you see some Latinx kids in the crowd, but very white. And Renee is so Steven's Hispanic, and Renee is black, right? And so at one point, one of the meme pages starts posting explicitly racist memes about Renee, right? And the reaction that we get in the movie, right? Because Ben is like very pro the meme pages. He doesn't run them, but he's very like, he's very glad that they exist, right? And he understands their use and he is trying to promote them. So when the racist meme comes out, what you get is Ben saying, "That's not okay. We publicly denounced that meme page," right? And that's about all you get.
Right.
On that podcast, they said that was the only moment that the people who organized the event did call all the kids into a room and say that is not okay. Apparently that happened.
Good, I guess. It's just like,
but like
that should have happened more.
Like that, it's good that it happened that once, but like, yeah, it should have happened more. And like, I think, like objectively, like other horrible things happen that like they probably should have stepped in and said something, like, right? Because they saw what Ben was doing. Yeah, I don't know. I find it like very well, but here's the like, why didn't the movie think it was important to show us that, regardless of the people organizing? Why didn't the movie think it was important to show us that?
It's a good one. I don't know.
I don't know. Because I think
that would have been redeeming, I feel like, or like at least a little bit. You know, if they would just show that, like at some point, someone, like they were, like the boys were being held accountable at least at one point. Yeah.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with showing that the boys are held accountable, because like, I don't know. Like, it's not a free for all, right? Like, politics isn't a free for all. Like, there are rules. I don't know. I mean, so in I would watch the movie. Hopefully this is an enjoyable conversation. But like, one thing that's in, and then maybe you go listen to this podcast, right? We'll look. Well, I said I'll link in the show notes, but one thing that the directors keep saying is how this is cinema verite, which is like, have you heard that term before? Cinema verite. Okay, so it's this idea that like it's idea that the like the camera is objective, right? Like the camera and the people making the movies like don't get in the way, right? It's like it's all about the subject, right? So cinema verite literally translates
truthful cinema.
Yeah, right? So it's like, right, it's about like realism and like, I don't know. I think I have like, whenever this idea that like, it's not saying it's like objective, but I like, right, they're trying to get close to like objective cinema, like this is how it really is. And it's just like, no, because every single time you as a person are choosing where to point your camera, which is a subjective decision. So don't make it like this is some sort of absolute truth, right? This is still filtered through what you wanted us to see. And you didn't, right? So you made the call that we don't see the boys receiving this very important discussion about like, that's not okay. Like, you can't, you're attacking someone for their identity, like, right? And it's not the only time someone is attacked for their identity. So like, but I don't know. So I would think that that's why they didn't want to show us it, because somehow it spoils the fantasy that these boys are they are operating and sort of controlling, behaving just of their own sort of beliefs or like own volition, right? That they're not that there's no one in charge, but like this is all them doing it, right? There is no outside influence, which is just like wrong, because like there's like you see it like these other various moments, like people sort of advising them, right? Not like strongly, but like, and then you're getting this whole like, and then just the way it's set up informs how it's going to work, the way that it's focused on the process, the way that there's no women there, the way that there is it doesn't really matter, like the way that you endorse the candidates before you know what they believe, like, right? Already these are like decisions that people are making that inform the way the thing works. So like, why can't you have people stepping in at other moments informing the way the thing works? And like, I don't know. So this gets at like this question, right? Like, right, is cinema verite, is this style of filmmaking, like, is this appropriate for this subject matter? What do you think?
I don't know. I feel like maybe not.
Yeah, right. Well, I think we've gotten to that, right? Because we both said there's moments when like you wanted the interviewer to step in, or you wanted someone involved with the thing to step in and just to push back, right? And I don't think there's anything, I don't know what would have been wrong with that. I don't think it would have made a worse movie. I don't think it would have like I don't think it would have hugely changed like what we took away from it, right? Because you still, I don't think, right, you're not going to change Ben's mind about something. You're not going to change Steven or Renee's mind about something, right? Like, they're going to do what they want to do, but just to like push back and be like, why are you doing this? Like, you know, as someone who works with high schoolers, like, you do have to push back and be like, why are you doing this? Like, you know, that's like, because sometimes they're not totally aware. They haven't, not that they don't know, but they just haven't articulated it. And like having that moment of articulation, like that doesn't change what this movie is, I don't think, if you're like asking for that from them. Yeah, I don't know. It's like interesting. It's depressing for sure. Cause I mean, so like this will be our last thing. We'll end here and we'll get into our last segment. Like, would you agree, right, with the statement, like, or I don't know, not to be so formal, but just like, do you think that like this movie makes it obvious, or do you think like it's not fair to say that like, oh, they behave this way because they've observed the way politics works for the last 4 years? Or do you feel like there's enough evidence in this movie to say like, no, the kids really have picked up on this and they know how to like use it? And
I don't know. I just feel like a lot of these boys like took what they see on the news or what they see on TV, like between like politicians, and they took it at face value and kind of like didn't bother to try to understand how it worked on like a deeper level. So yeah.
I think we leave it right there. I think said it great. I totally agree with that. Absolutely. Anyways, that's Boys State. If you have Apple TV Plus, maybe give it a watch. But if you don't,
you want to feel sad or outraged.
Yeah. All right. Let's let's take a break. We'll be back with you know, things that aren't making us outraged. We'll see you in a second.
So we're back, and we're gonna talk about what's making us happy. I think we need that right now.
Yeah, we need that.
I'll start. I like to watch TV a lot, and I've been digesting a lot of Sherlock Holmes content. I rewatched all of like the BBC Sherlock. Now I'm on to Elementary. So I've taken to watching Elementary while studying for my exams, which I don't think actually was a good idea, based on my exam score that I received this morning. But
bad? Really?
It was
bad?
okay. No, it was actually
okay.
fine, but
Okay.
like I think I could have done better if I, hadn't tried to juggle both things.
Got it.
But yeah,
Got it.
Elementary, I like it.
What season are you on?
Season 2 so far.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say,
Does it get worse? I haven't watched it all the way through.
I think there's 5 seasons. Let me do a quick Google. How many seasons of Element? Oh, there's 7 seasons. Okay. I think I've seen 5 seasons. I think those first... Has Kitty shown up yet?
No.
No?
Wait, I know who she is, though.
Yeah. I think, what's his sponsor's name?
Alfredo.
Alfredo, I was about to say. It's like an interesting name. It's Alfredo. Yeah. I think there's a point... So, Kitty shows up to kind of take Watson's place a little bit. Not fully, but Watson, moves on a little bit at a certain point. And then Kitty shows up, and then she kind of leaves. And then I think Alfredo kind of leaves at the same time. I want to say that's the end of season 3 or season 4.
That's I remember that part. I also remember there was does he relapse?
Yes. I never really watched past the relapse because I was
also, spoiler alert, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. I love Elementary. I don't know if that's the end of season 3 or season 4. I never made it too far past that, but I think those first 3 or 4 seasons are really strong. It's 22 episodes every season, but all of those episodes are good.
Yeah,
I can't speak to season 6 or 7. I don't think I've actually seen those. But this show is interesting in that he's not just someone who uses drugs. He's an addict, right? He is someone in rehab who identifies as an addict and is trying to
not use them.
Trying to not use drugs, right? Trying to not let that sort of control his life, right? Because he isn't able to be as good of a detective, right? And so that struggle is very central to this show, in a way that other, right, the movies, the Sherlock, the BBC show, the way that they don't really do. And yeah, Johnny Lee Miller and who plays Watson? I forget her name. Lucy Liu. Is it Lucy? Yeah.
I don't know how to pronounce it.
Yeah, Lucy Liu plays Watson. And I also love the guy Marcus Bell. I don't know what else he's in. John Michael Hill, but Detective Bell is really good.
I like Captain Gregson too.
He's okay. I don't. He's fine. I'm not a big fan, but yeah. So I definitely Elementary. That's awesome. I've been meaning to, but then I look at it and I'm like, those are 45-minute episodes, and there's 150 of them.
Yeah,
but maybe I gotta do like you do and just put them on when something else is going on, because it's definitely that type of show too. You don't have to watch every episode extremely closely. But nice. I have also been watching TV, and I only thought about this yesterday. But I was because there's I texted you the other day. I was because I thought you had watched Boys State, so I was are the kids all right?
Yeah, and I was like, what the fuck?
Some of the kids in that Boys State are all right, but a lot of them are not all right. A show where the kids, I think, are all right, or is We Are Who We Are on HBO, which is not a show about teenagers behaving well, but just about teenagers being self-aware. It's about teenagers being curious, about teenagers being introspective, and about teenagers very, very interested in the process of like becoming who they are. But they do very much behave like teenagers do, which is sometimes they are irrational and sometimes they do things they shouldn't. But like, they're not. I guess I would say these are not like bad kids, right? It's not disheartening to watch them be teenagers the way it was most of the kids in Boys State. So yeah, it's made by Luca Guadagnino, who is the same guy who made Call Me by Your Name, which is that movie we mentioned on our Sufjan episode, because Sufjan made some music for that movie. And it's set in Italy it's set in not present day. It's set in 2016 Italy. Because you like part of it is that Trump just got elected, so it's like end of the year 2016 in Italy, and it's set on an American military base, and it follows two kids whose parents work on the base, and then the kids like go to school and like do whatever they do, sort of in this interesting like context where they sit kind of in between these two different worlds and cultures, and sort of with this strong like military influence on a lot of things, and then how do they sort of push against that. Really good show, like good music. Like I think that the actors, right, it's like all mostly teenage actors, are really good, like very willing to be very vulnerable and reflective with their acting in a way that's like, I don't know, you don't always get that with like young actors, so that's really nice to see. And it's only 7 episodes, but that made me happy to watch it. I was like, oh, this is better.
Nice.
This is nice. Yeah. All right, Ange, I think that does us for another week.
Cool. What's the
again,
next one?
We let me just take a look. I think we're doing our next Studio Ghibli movie. Where is the episode? Princess Mononoke. Yeah, nice. All right, yeah. So we got our second Studio Ghibli movie, Princess Mononoke. And then maybe we say that next one just in case, because that one's a big one. So and then after that, we're gonna be doing reviewing, which sounds weird, but the Slaughterhouse-5, but they released a new Slaughterhouse-5 graphic novel. So both of us, you read it?
Well, I'm halfway through.
I was gonna say, don't make sure you take some notes, because we got you got 2 weeks to remember everything. So
do you see me adding up?
Yeah, I do see you. We'll save that we'll adjust our schedule. But so if you want to check that out, we'll be doing that in 2 weeks. That'll be November 16th, right? Because so for us, it's the day before the election. For you, it'll be a Wednesday, like a week later. So we'll know who our new president is. I think both of us have a lot of feelings and are nervous about that. Right? We, just put it mildly, we're not happy with the person who is president right now. But I guess we can leave it at that. All right, that'll do us for this weekend. We'll see everyone next week, and thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.